All right, hello everyone. Welcome to our virtual art reception for Warm Up in Tandem. My name is Amanda Poss, Gallery Director of Gallery221 at HCC Dale Mabry campus. I'll be the moderator for tonight's event. We're thrilled to have you all here with us virtually. Of course, we wish we could see you in person. We're eagerly waiting till it's safe again to do that. As you may have noticed, we are recording the event. So, and we're going to work to make this available online later on for those who were perhaps unable to attend or those who simply want to rewatch the reception. So please email gallery221@hccfl.edu if you want to be notified when this is available. For clarity, everyone except speakers tonight will be muted for the entirety of the event. However, we do welcome your participation in the comments section and would love to see you all say hello, encourage our artists, and ask questions along the way. One note about the chat, the gallery will be posting links periodically in this area, but be cautious if you see a link that doesn't come from the gallery team. That's myself, Emiliano Sedekasi, or Ashley Williams. As with anything done online, just be cautious unless it's something that you trust. Also, as we share images and announcements, Zoom automatically creates this little sidebar with attendee videos. If this disrupts your ability to see some of the presentation content, you can minimize the sidebar or change the way it appears by selecting the icon on the top left of that little bar and change to one speaker's video or speaker view during the event. Just like any reception, in person or otherwise, I have a few words of thanks before I start talking with our artists. First, I want to express my appreciation to the Student Government Association at the HCC Dale Mabry campus for their long-standing support of the gallery. Their contributions make our exhibitions and programs possible. I also want to say thank you to Dr. Alan Witt, HCC Dale Mabry campus president, and also Dustin Lemke, Dean of Associate in Arts, for the support of the gallery and for the arts at large for the college. One thanks that means a lot to me is for my Gallery221 team, who helped put the exhibition together and this event, and some of them are working behind the scenes right now as I speak. So Emiliano Sedekasi and Ashley Williams, thank you so much for all you do. Also, we have Alex Brock here with us from the Dean's office, who's helping us manage tonight's event. Though the exhibition is currently still closed to the public, many people worked very, very hard right before the closures to install the show in March. So my thanks to them, to Dominique and Erika, to Walter Matthews and Ron Francis, and also our gallery student workers, Mark Miller and Seja Fernandez. I think some of you are with us tonight, so thank you so much for helping to prepare the exhibition. We can't wait to open it up to everybody once it's safe to do so. So the performance that you're going to hear later on during tonight's reception was arranged by American composer Gilda Lyons, who arranged Purcell's music for this combination of soprano and double bass. So my sincere thanks to Ms. Lyons for allowing our performers the use of this arrangement. Finally, last but not least, my thanks to all of our panelists tonight. Thank you for sharing your time and your creative talents with us. So tonight's virtual reception, you're going to hear from Dominique Labauvie, our featured artist, but also Erika Greenberg-Schneider, Esther Labauvie, and Dee Moses. We're going to begin with some introductions. I'll ask a few questions. We'll then share that special pre-recorded performance from Esther and Dee, and then we'll return for some follow-up discussion. The event's going to conclude with some time for Q&A from our audience. So as I mentioned, please feel free to put your questions into the chat as the event moves along, and we're going to address your questions in the order in which they appear at the end in the time we have left. So at this point, I would like to invite each of our artists to spend a few minutes introducing themselves to our audience. They're here unmuting themselves, getting ready. So tell us each a little bit about your background and your work. Oh, are we there? Esther, I see you on the screen. Why don't you go ahead and unmute and get us started?
Okay, hi. I'm Esther Labauvie. I'm the daughter of Dominique and Erika. Dominique is the sculptor. It's weird to call him Dominique. My dad is the sculptor of the installation that we're all waiting to see. And I'm an opera singer. I'm living in Stuttgart, Germany. It's midnight here, so I apologize for the makeshift bedroom lighting. I'm here studying with Melanie Diener, who's a dramatic soprano who's sung all around the world and preparing to audition for master's programs and for young artist programs and the like. And I graduated from Indiana University in 2018 with a bachelor's in music performance and voice performance. And I've been here since. So that's about me. And I'm really happy to see all of these faces on my screen. It's giving me so much joy. It's so special to be a part of this. So hello to everyone. And I pass it on, I guess, to mom and dad, Dominique and Erika.
Hello, everyone. I'm very proud to be here and to see our daughter, Esther, ready for that first presentation in a new technique, and so comfortable with that. My name is Dominique Labauvie. With Erika, we have decided to leave France, and we are in Tampa since 20 years. Mm-hmm. Why to leave France? Because in the career of an artist, but any person dedicated to the research, it's important at a certain point to discover new skylines, a new culture, new type of population and landscapes, and to invent something new. You know, what I feel today is the necessity to invent our present, not the future, the past, but our present. And in the word present, you have the presentation. So I can present for you my wife, Erika, because Erika has decided to rejoin United States, and she has pushed me to follow her. You know, it's not evident to leave a country, a continent like Europe, and to discover a city like Tampa. Thank you.
So we moved here in '98, and I started here in Tampa. I was the master printer at Graphic Studio, and then I decided that I had worked for many, many people, and it was time to open up my own shop. So in 2003, we opened Bleu Acier Inc. on Columbus Drive. Since I work with artists from all around the world, and I am also associate professor of graphic design and printmaking at USF St. Petersburg. Dee.
Hello. Dee Moses is here.
And then
yes. I am here. I am Dee Moses. I am the principal double bass of the Florida Orchestra. I have been doing this, playing here, living here, playing in the orchestra here since, unbelievably, since 1975, right after school. I went to school at the Cleveland Institute of Music, where I got a bachelor and master. And before that, I was at the North Carolina School of the Arts in my native North Carolina. I am thrilled to be doing this for any number of reasons. I am delighted to work with my friends Dominique, Erika, and Esther. We've known each other for many, many years, almost probably since you guys came to the States. And I am just thrilled to have watched Esther grow into a beautiful young musician, and to watch the process and the dedication and the unbelievable work of these two artists, Dominique and Erika. So I'm just thrilled to be a part of this. Normally, you see me in the section or leading the section in the Florida Orchestra. I usually play with about 80, 85 people. So this is a different kind of a challenge, playing alone, and then making a duet, which is so beautiful and so intimate and so interesting. The cyber aspect of what has been brought to bear upon these times has added yet another level of challenge, but we'll talk more about that later.
Thank you all for introducing yourselves. So much more personal. I think we're all missing that bit of human connection, right? So rather than me read your bios, so glad you guys could introduce yourselves to our audience tonight. So as we begin the panel discussion with the meaty questions, right? I'm going to begin with directing this to Dominique. So Dominique, a particularly important aspect of this show is that connection with music and sound. This is something you discussed many times in relation to your work and is very evident in the sculptural installation in the gallery. There's something very lyrical also to the 4 prints that are included as well. So what draws you to this connection between visual art and music?
Thank you, Amanda. It's impossible to answer completely, but it's because it's huge. The concept of creation, since the beginning of humanity, is based on the crossing of different feelings. For example, an image is not only visual. The image of a bison in the cave of Lascaux has a sound. We hear the prehistoric people, you know. The image of the sun, comment on dit le crépuscule?
The sunrise.
The sunrise create another light and create a sound. The colors are connected to the music. I have read recently a book of French writer Paul Claudel, the brother of Camille Claudel. And Paul Claudel has written that book, The Eye Here. He speaks about the painting of the north coast of the north of Europe. In the north of Europe, the color disappear in the mist, the wetness of the air, and the horizontality of the landscape create a sound. You know, speak, it's like a music. You know, you have not the painting or the sculpture separated in drawers, you know. All that has to move. The intelligence, the creativity, the invention is the fact to explore that type of subtleties, you know. Not to make statue, to create an object and another object without connection with the sound, with the colors, with the gravity, with the strange feelings, you know. Voilà. Okay?
And the prints that are in this exhibition are related to this kind of thought process that Dominique uses in his work. He builds pieces with segments, and it's like notes on a line of sheet music. And the prints do the same thing. There's always, for me, the prints are almost more tridimensional than the sculptures are, because there's a ground, there's an intermediate, and then there's a line. And so the line is what orchestrates the space of the print, and the form and the background are the supporting actors to that, as an orchestra would be for a soloist.
Oh, that was so lovely. Even your responses are lyrical. So I want to talk about the title of this exhibition, which refers to the central installation of the gallery, Warm Up in Tandem. I know our audience, normally we would be right by the gallery looking at this, so it would be more obvious, but I'm going to describe it a little bit for everyone else. The central installation divides the lateral space of Gallery221 in half, as you can see here now on the screen, making the installation approachable only on one side. And then the title infers this concept of preparation of multiple bodies, of working in concert. So before we share the performance with Esther and Dee, I was wondering if you could describe for us your vision, this inspiration and intention behind the composition and the concept.
It's the second time I exhibit in that space. First, we have to say that the notion of space, the territory of the space for an artist, his studio or her studio, the size of that studio, and is very important. It's a space on which you can close the door. And it's a space with an echo, with that territory, you begin to know that very well, you know. For example, a painter chooses the size of the canvas. A sculptor chooses the size of the material he shall use, and the weight, and the color. And the space of your gallery is, for me, very important, because when you enter, immediately the laterality is more important than the profondeur,
The depth.
the depth. The eye go from the left to the right to the left, like a space for the tennis. Something happened with the two walls. And what happened when I speak, or when you speak, and when speak to somebody else? It's a tandem. It's the voice go from the point A to the point B. A line in the space. When you are in a train, you see the line, the electric lines or the telephone lines, making that form during all your trajectory. The line. For me, the space has conducted me to play with the lines from one side to the other. Voilà. And you know, the voice has a propulsion in the space which is horizontal. The voice has no verticality, you know. It's something connected to the landscape, you know. A landscape is based on the horizontality too, you know. The connection between between us is most of the time horizontal. And that is the first point on which I have worked in the space. Second thing is not to weld everything together. No. It's just an installation of very fragile lines who meet in the middle. And you have the blue line and the yellow line who suddenly touch them like two hands in the middle of the space. And the middle of the space is a square, a black square, you know. It's the hole, it's the heart, it's the place where something is suddenly created, you know. It's the nest of an invention. The invention is the voice of Esther. C'est-à-dire, suddenly I have realized that the whole project was to create a space, a stage, not a statue, not a subjective feeling, you know, of something very difficult to translate, but to serve, to create a little territory specially made for a new baby in the music. And the new baby in the music is Esther. You know, Esther is our daughter, and the story of Esther and the music is something very, very personal. You know, it's her secret, it's her creation. We were first in Paris, in the France, we have traveled a lot with her, and she has decided to create her life around the music. So for me, it's like a cradle, you know, that it's the first stage for her. Voilà.
Yeah, it is so personal. This is why I really can't wait till we can welcome everybody back in and we can do this again in person, so everyone can see that relationship between the bodies of our performers and the sculpture, which becomes like a stage. So, you know, we're setting the stage, as you forgive my terrible dry humor, for this specially recorded performance by Soprano Esther Labauvie and Dee Moses on the double bass. I want to make one comment before we share it from our performers. Over the internet, this performance is really best heard with headphones. So if you've got those, go ahead and grab them and plug them in. And our performers wanted to make sure you understand that the sound is not at all as rich as it would be if they were standing in front of you. So please take that into consideration. And you may also want to be ready to adjust your volume up or down, depending on how loud the performance is for you. So the song is Dido's Lament, composed by Henry Purcell in 1688 and arranged by Miss Lyons in 2017. Now we're going to share that performance, and please enjoy.
One, two, three, four. One, two, three, four. Snap.
Wow, that's normally where you'd hear thunderous applause, so I'll do my best here. I saw the people cheering you guys on in the chat room. The recording for that performance is available on our Gallery221 YouTube channel. A link's going to be added to the chat section for you guys, and we will be uploading it to our social media platforms at Gallery221 HCC if you would like to watch it again later and get all those same chills another time. Again, our performers recommend that you use headphones for the best experience of the sound. It's so hard to find words after that. It's such a resonant, powerful performance. Esther and Dee, thank you both for working so hard. This was not easy to record and share digitally. So I want to begin by having a conversation about everyone's thoughts and feelings now watching this recording in our virtual reception, especially considering how this was originally intended to be performed live in the gallery with the installation, and what it means to each of you to be a part of this kind of collaborative endeavor.
If it is possible, I want to connect the colors to the song. What we have here is the last breath, the last song of a being, a woman, who discovered that her love is dead and she died. It's excessively tragic. You know, that music expressed me that tragedy through the colors. You know, the two colors, the blue line and the yellow line are two beings, and the center they contact each other, but it's the last contact of the love. You know, it's like a grave, and suddenly it's the only way to transmit to other generations that type of feeling. Well, that is my opinion about that music. And you, what do you think about your own feeling?
Esther,
it meant a lot to be a part of this. We are a family of artists, and it was kind of always like a lingering idea that we would eventually work together somehow, and it's so special that it's now, and that it's sort of, you know, no matter what this world is throwing at us right now, we were still able to do it, which I'm so thankful to you, Amanda, and the team for making this happen. But I think something my dad said earlier about the sculpture kind of being like a cradle, and I'm an opera singer, and the stage is like a cradle, so there's something kind of remarkably poetic about collaborating with your father and him, you know, talking about the cradle and building a sort of comfortable space for me to be able to, you know, sing my song. But this was a really special thing to do together with my parents, and then with Dee, who I've known practically my entire life. And I feel really honored and really happy, and kind of totally stirred up right now. But yeah, it means a lot to be a part of this, and I'm thankful for my cradle and for my audience, and yeah. Dee?
And I feel the same. I also am in a family of artists. My wife is a dancer, choreographer. Our daughter is a dancer. Esther and my daughter grew up hanging out, even though my daughter's a bit older. Esther spent the night with my daughter at our house several times over the years, and I saw her express an interest in music. We did a little bit of preliminary work on music theory to get her sort of going, and it's just been a real two families of artists that are lucky to be both friends and collaborators now. It's a real special gift. When I married, I wasn't expecting to be able to do music automatically create music for my wife's choreography, but it turned out that was a very easy thing to do, and that we have done. And this collaboration, notwithstanding the difficulties of the cyberspace, but that's another issue, and that's just a technical issue. The idea of being able to collaborate our family and the family of Dominique, Esther, and Erika I'm also moved, and I'm starting to just kind of ramble because I'm very moved and I don't know quite what to say, except that the intersection of the two voices, I have a hard time hearing myself, but I didn't have a hard time listening to this because the two lines, the intersection of the two musical lines and the intersection of the lines of the space of the sculptor, unbelievable. What a synchronicity, and I'm really honored to be a part of it. Very lucky guy right now.
I rejoin you about the intersection of the two lines. Because your instrument is very low. It's a low sound. And your instrumentation is very modern. It's the percussionist, right? A part of the music is just the movement of your fingers on the strings. It's not harmonic. And on the other side, the soprano Esther, it's another world. It's the sound of la jeunesse, the youth. You know, it's your instrument creates the tempo, the rhythm, a rhythm that nothing can destroy that rhythm, you know. And Esther is just the wave of the feeling, the wave of the breathing. And the connection between you and Esther is extremely important. Thank you very much, because I know that nothing is more difficult to create something together and with the distance, you know, without the personal contact, without shaking the hands. Thank you, Dee.
Yeah, well, it's something we talked about before, right? How to do this. I mean, Esther, you're in Germany, and by the virtues of cyberspace and the internet, you know, we could actually still have that collaboration happen. But, you know, as performers, you work off of each other, right? Each other's energy, emotion, and all those little cues. And we talked a little bit how you guys dealt with that. Do you want to share?
Yeah, I get 2 hours in the day to sing in my room, thankful to my very lovely downstairs neighbor. Hopefully he never sees this. And so this was kind of a limiting factor, because making a recording, for some people it comes easy. I've always struggled singing in front of a camera. It's always been really hard to connect with anything when there's this like permanence staring at you in the face. I don't know, dealing with, you know, object permanence isn't something that they really prepare you for in music school, because it's a live performance. That's the most important thing, is this live performance aspect. But then to do it with a double bass player who's across the ocean, it's like, on the third and final take, I decided that I was going to put Dee's video sort of an eye shot of my camera. And it changed everything about the performance, because it's true, it's an accompaniment, but it's also definitely a duet. I mean, his line is is beautiful on its own. You know, it's got this incredible rhythm and it has its own melody to it. And it was cool to kind of have him in eye shot, and then I had him in my ear because we were kind of singing with each other on our own like instruments. But yeah, so it was interesting. I really kind of enjoyed it, even though it was kind of very annoying to not be able to say, hey, can you just hold that one more beat? Or, man, I cut off too early. I can't tell you how many bloopers I have of just making a mistake, because there's no room for a mistake when you have, you know, this distance and a recording in your ear.
So yeah, the technical aspect of it was just figuring a sort of a mathematical formula to get started. It was actually, it appeared in the video. I was thinking that might be edited out, but it does
but
show
so
you exactly
lovely.
what our
There was
process
something so like raw and telling about the 1, 2, 3.
Snap. So, and then that gave us our heartbeat. That's the pulse. It's the musical pulse. But the beautiful thing about music is when performers connect with that pulse, magic happens. And then the audiences, when they connect, their hearts connect with the heart, their heartbeat connects with the heartbeat of the music. That's when the magic happens, and that's what we get to experience in the theater, in the hall. And we're creating this in a whole new paradigm. Hopefully, I don't know, I was moved, and I'm rarely pleased with anything I do as someone who's always striving for that perfection that's unattainable. But I really hope that the pulsation, which is not really obvious, but that it's a heartbeat underneath that everyone can connect to. And what Esther said about singing, I always consider my instrument to be my voice. And I love vocal music. I've played opera my entire professional life. Well, even as a student, I've played in the pit, downstairs in the pit. I'd just as soon be in an opera pit as anywhere. I love all forms of music that I get to play, but I really, there's something about supporting the human voice. And yes, it's a duet, and yes, I have an independent part, but the support, and I think, especially if you use headphones, you'll hear that the resonance of the double bass is like, I want to be the floor that Esther can dance on. Dominique has provided the stage, and the bass, in a certain aspect, yes, it has a line, but it's also the floor, the very foundation upon which she can stand and dance. And that's my goal. And I hope that that was able to support her in the way that I intended.
Definitely. I felt totally comfortable on my floor.
It's interesting, we're talking about things like very physical or material, the heartbeat, the floor, the stage. So I want to talk a little bit about the materials in the exhibition as installed in the gallery. So Erika and Dominique, of course, there are 4 prints included in the show, each made at Bleu Acier, the fine art print publishing site and collaborative workshop that you run here in Tampa. Can you talk a little bit more about these prints? I know you did a little bit of a teaser at the beginning, but I think even more in comparison with those steel sculptures for which Dominique is so well known. Just go into a little bit more detail for those.
We arrive now, just one word before Erika, about the title of the exhibition, warm-up. What is the warm-up of a singer? Is to sing each day. What is the warm-up of Erika is to print and to teach the printing. What is the warm-up of a sculptor for me is to explain that even with the pieces of steel, very difficult, you can be light in the space, you know. Behind that lines, it's a lot of work. Behind that melody is a lot of work. And the conservation, since the life of Purcell himself, it's incredibly to conserve, to protect that music and to be able to hear that together after centuries, after wars, after devastation, after pandemic, you know. It's incredible, the relation between art and the life and death, you know. It's, the art need the death to be propulsed in the future. So, Erika, can you explain me, explain us a little the processes of the printing process?
These prints are very interesting in Dominique's cursus of his career because, you know, printmaking is one of those things, and I always tell people that I'm the printmaker that hates printmaking, because I do. Because the space is very flat and not loving, and you have to render it somehow. You have to give the space back to the image. And we were working on a series of prints that were very difficult, that we weren't happy with. And I worked for the Mag family for a long time and the Merlot family. And I learned that Fernand Léger said one day to his printer, if you can't do it in 4 colors, the 5th color ain't gonna cut it. Is pretty much the translation. And I always remember that the person who was teaching me, Monsieur Marcel, would always say that. And it's really important to understand that you have to have a really good idea when you're working, and you can start developing it. I make original prints, so there's no roadmap. The artist comes and we decide on a process and we start working. And these prints started one way, and then we were kind of perplexed. The big print, which is called Les Pléiades, which has a line in gold leaf, really started the journey, because that print, that line was a woodcut to start. And Dominique kept trimming it down and trimming it down and trimming it down. And everyone was miserable, and we were all miserable, and we kept proofing and proofing and proofing. And finally, we got to a point where it was just directing us what we needed to do, but it had to be metal. And from that point on, we started thinking about the prints differently. So the other linear print in the show, which we showed in the beginning, which has copper lines like this, I can't remember the name, but that particular print started the journey of Dominique forging small silver and copper lines in his studio, and me trying to figure out a way to print them on the Japanese paper so they wouldn't rip. And then as we kept going, we realized that that was the way to proceed. And then all these other new images. The other image that's in the show, Boule, is an older image from 2 years ago, but also started this way of thinking of how to use a process to do this frontal space that's not flat. How can you build that frontal space that's not flat? So these prints are really important in his career. And then we started very recently a new series in quarantine called Champagne in Quarantine. So,
very good title.
As you know, the champagne comes with a cage, I think it's called in English. Mm-hmm. And so in the first show in 2013 at Gallery221, they had all his little champagne sculptures in front of the windows. And so I was saying, maybe we can start printing those lines because they're so interesting. So you start to take them apart and start to forge them, and I start to print them. And we started a series of images. And I sent Emiliano one of the most recent images if he wants to flash it. I don't know if he has that set up. Yeah, it's called Union. So it's 19 inches by 22 inches, and there you can see the champagne, that's the topper, those gold pieces that are inked. And then the lines are made from the cage and then printed and inked like a relief print. And this print actually is part of an art fair that's going on right now called thisisfair.org, which is NADA's response to quarantine, because there'll be no fairs this year, I don't think. So it's their online fair, and this is the print that represents Bleu Acier for the first week of thisisfair.org.
What is very interesting too, because of the space where we present warm-up in Tandem, is a pedagogic space. So it's not a gallery, a commercial gallery, it's not a museum, it's a place where dedicated to the dialectic, to the explication, to the critique eventually, to say, I cannot understand that, you know, I cannot follow you, you know, what is that? You know? And more you show the work, more you, that is interesting, via the virtual presentation, we are obliged to break the silence. We have more and more, actually, the artists begin to speak. It's difficult for us because we spend a life in the silence and the solitude. But more and more, with the popularization, to survive as an artist is to produce and to explain and to teach, in a sense, not with the blah, 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 but with the reality of an engagement, you know, an engagement not between initiated persons only, but to try to embrace the whole population.
That's one of our favorite questions at the gallery, is what am I looking at? It's one of the powerful things about art is to begin that kind of conversation to discuss meaning and layers of experience. So I'm trying to be mindful of time. We do have one more question before we open it up to Q&A. So if you guys have questions for our audience, make sure you're putting those in. So I want to conclude with a conversation about how working in your medium, so this is for all of our artists, has been impacted during quarantine and coronavirus. As we prepared for transitioning this event online and sharing the exhibition virtually rather than in the physical spaces of the gallery, we each talked about how this has impacted our day-to-day routines, something a lot of people are talking about, right? Staying productive, remaining connected with a sense of community, overcoming new obstacles, remaining inventive and courageous in this new environment. So for our panelists, can you each share your perspectives on this for your medium?
Okay. Well, I have a tendency to, you know, by Instagram, I keep a very deep contact with a lot of artists in Europe. And most of them find that the quarantine, that the fact to close the door, to close the window, and to focalize on a study is very important. That is our normal life. What is more important than the quarantine is to show what you have made during the quarantine. After 40 days of isolation, show that. You know, in France, we have a big grant named the Villa Médicis. The Villa Médicis is in Rome.
Rome Prize.
Rome Prize. It's a beautiful building, etc., etc. When you receive the possibility to work there, they put you in a studio during a certain number of days. The door is closed. No contact with the outside. And when they open the door, you show your work and you explain that work. And you win or you lose. That the quarantine is that. You know, we have a little time in the life to survive, you know, maximum 100 years. You know. When an old artist, for example, Motherwell, Lady Motherwell died, you know, that she was approaching.
Motherwell was a man.
Wait, was approaching a great age. How do qu'est-ce que tu vas faire? Qui est mort récemment?
Oh, Susan Rothenberg.
Rothenberg. Mm. I make a mistake. Rothenberg. Qu'est-ce que je disais à l'instant? Aide-moi.
For the painting.
Oui, as a painter, no, it's difficult. Excuse me, I stop a little. You know.
Okay, all right.
Can you help me?
All right, I'll take. For the quarantine, for me, it's been really interesting because we live and work in this space. And so we haven't stopped. It hasn't changed our rhythm. But on the other hand, you know, I've been helping some of my colleagues in other places that can't go to their shop because they're not allowed. So I've been taking work and helping them finish work by distance. And it's been a really interesting moment, you know, for that.
Right, exactly. It's based on the concept of frustration. You know, suddenly you discover your freedom. The freedom is a resistance, you know. You cannot be an artist because you decide that. It's a resistance. Everything is against you in a sense. The technical difficulties, the studies, the school herself. Because the school cannot create an artist. You know. The school can give you a certain number of tools as a certain culture necessary, you know. But to be an artist is to explore your inability to do the thing. You know, when you take, for example, an artist like Cézanne, in his time, Cézanne was confronted to a lot of very important artists making perfect drawings, imperialist drawings, without any mistake. When these artists were seeing the work of Cézanne, when he was, for example, making the drawing of a nail on a plate, they were on the floor laughing against him. You know, it was totally stupid to do that, you know, because that artist, they have not understood that to explore something new, you have to admit that you are unable. You are just unable, you know. You try to do something more than the reality. The reality is very limited, you know. And when I enter in a drawing or in a sculpture, I enter in a non-explored space, a territory of danger, a territory of, you can lose your hope, you know. And suddenly, at a certain moment, when you are really humble in front of yourself, you discover the nugget of gold.
It's interesting talking about that isolation to transformation and what that experience can be like. I'm curious for our performing artists if you feel like that process is similar as you're entering into new terrain, trying new things.
Well, yes, but that's the short answer. The long answer is that we have a somewhat similar and yet a somewhat very sort of a schizophrenic existence. We are expected, and it is necessary to, as Dominique says, investigate our inability to perform up to what we can conceive by ourselves, in practice, in personal practice, at home, in a private place, or hopefully semi-private place. And yet at the rest of the day, and most days, it's spent performing or rehearsing with others in a very not private place. You're constantly exposing your abilities and sharing your abilities with your colleagues. In an orchestra, it's a very large group. In a string quartet, it's a much smaller group. Similar, examples in the vocal realm as well. Esther would always be with a pianist at least, and for her to sing without a pianist well, for her to sing this song without anything but me in an earbud is, it just shows she's done the other work, the private work, to hone her craft, to even be able to do that without the normal, okay, piano comes in, there's the note, cool, all I have to do is match the piano and I'm good. It's not that easy, but for sake of example. So we have two phases to our work. Yes, we have the private enclosed exploration, which has not changed in the pandemic. What we're lacking and what has changed just astronomically is how do we get that out to anyone else outside of our four walls? And there we run into so many issues that we will be here till midnight and we won't even get to hear Esther talk. So I'll try to be extremely brief, but technically, first of all, we do not yet have, it's getting closer, I understand from my reading, but it's getting closer, but we do not have the ability to collaborate in real time over the internet unless we're maybe in a university lab somewhere. I don't know, I think they're doing very close things to that. I wish Gilda was on, she could probably tell me, Gilda Lyons, but anyway, for us mere performers, we're not equipped for that. Actually, most of us are not even equipped to make decent recordings at home. We're using our cell phones. I did buy an external microphone because the bass is such a low register that the computer just can't pick it up at all. So there's a technical issue of making these videos, assembling them, or some third party or somebody assembling them. Thank you, Emiliano. Thank you so much for doing that. In other words, I have 45 years of orchestral experience. I've got less than 45 days of Zoom experience. And it's a huge thing to present a performance in something you have almost no experience using. And the last thing I'll say is music over internet protocol has, I think, a future, but we're not quite there yet in terms of quality and transmission, bandwidth and all those things. I'm not a technician, so I don't know exactly the right terms, but I know what I hear and I know what I don't hear. So it's not going to be the same. It's not the same. The last thing I will say is, in a personal level, being very honest, making these videos, yes, we've always been told and we've recorded ourselves practicing, but it's a whole different thing when you record yourself practicing and pick up a little tendency or a little habit that you want to fix. It's quite different to put something out there on the internet for posterity. So it's a little intimidating in that regard, and it causes you to listen to yourself extremely microscopically, and your every flaw, which I wouldn't necessarily hear in an 80 with 4 trombones and 3 trumpets and the percussion section and the entire orchestra, I might not hear a slight little glitch in my own playing, but on video, whoa, it's
a very different kind of platform.
Very different thing. So it's been I think it bodes well that we're doing this for future performances, but it's been a huge, huge adjustment. And I can't wait to get back in our hall. Okay, I'm done.
Okay, Esther, take a minute, do response, and we'll get to Q&A, but I want to make sure you have a chance to weigh in here.
I think Dee covered all the bases on home recording. It's really trying to kind of self-analyze to the extent that you're able when you make a home recording and you can just listen to it over and over and over again and dissect everything. But something I did at the beginning of quarantine here in Stuttgart was take to the balcony. There was a designated Sunday afternoon where everyone was supposed to go and sing Beethoven's Ode to Joy off of their balconies, and no one on my street was doing it, and it was terribly awkward because there were people ready to watch, but there was no one ready to, deliver. But my upstairs neighbors, they were blasting it on a Bluetooth speaker, And I, like went up there and knocked on their door and kind of made my way. They live on the top floor, it's like what would be an apartment is half balcony, half live space. So they have this like giant platform of outdoor space. And after a couple rounds of trying to get this Ode to Joy to stick, Natasha kind of just suggested, like, we listen to you practice every day. Like, why don't you just sing some opera? And so I was really nervous. They asked me a few times before I finally did it, and I ran down and got my music, and then Stefan, her partner, was kind of like, just do it already. And so I was like, okay. So I broke out my little keyboard piano on my phone to find notes, because singing out into an empty, like, open space like a street it's really hard, because you're not supposed to listen to yourself when you're singing, but it's kind of, you can't help it. But when you're doing that, you don't have a choice, because it's just going and you can't control anything. But I continued to do it for about 2 weeks. Every day at 6, I'd go up and sing an aria, and that was a really nice release. And it definitely kept the spirits high, because performing is beautiful and wonderful, but without an audience and an appreciation and the energy of someone listening, it can be full of energy and really great, on the inside and to yourself, but it's such a different experience when you've got someone, feeding you their energy also. It changes everything. So that's how I dealt with the confinement of quarantine in the beginning. And then this project also helped me a lot with getting out there, and it felt so good to have like a goal, like, I have to record this really well, and it has to go with this double bass, and it has to be put together and then given to people, which was so exciting. I don't know, it's really special to be able to still perform in some way. But
yeah, and for those of you who are very curious or intrigued by what Esther just told you about singing from her balcony, you can watch that on our YouTube channel or on Instagram TV for the gallery. It is, of course, Esther, you're wonderful. It's a beautiful, beautiful performance. I'm sure the people who could hear you very much enjoyed it, even if you couldn't feed directly off of their energy as you would in a concert hall. So it gave me, again, kind of virtually my energy to you all the way in Germany.
I feel it.
Yeah, good. So now I know we're a little over on time, but if you guys are willing to hang in with us, take a few minutes to answer questions. So Ashley from the gallery has been keeping track in the comments section. So Ashley, I'm gonna open it to you. What's our first question from the audience?
Can you all hear me? My God, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you all for your comments and questions this evening. So we're going to share the questions in the order that they came in. So please continue to share your questions in the chat. If we do not get to yours, please be sure to email us at gallery221@hccfl.edu. So we have one question so far, and it's from Jennifer Ring. This is open to all of our artists. She was wondering, did it mean more to you to work with family and friends during this pandemic compared to normal times?
Very good question. Thank you, Jen.
I'll just dive in. That's kind of difficult because we've never really collaborated yet. This is our first dip into this world. I definitely don't think it's the end. I think it's maybe just the beginning of performing in my parents' work. I hope it's just the beginning, because it's really special for me. So that being said, I think maybe no. I think the fact that there's this distance maybe makes it almost more painful that we can't be together and doing it in the live. But I think that no matter where or how it would be happening, I think it would be a special experience, at least for me, to be able to perform in my parents' work and with such close friends like Dee.
And I will say, I don't want to be Debbie Downer, but given the content of the aria, and yeah, I would like to say it could be seen as a sort of a memorial to this time, to lives lost. I think also there's what's lost is our innocence, that who I never imagined in a million years I wouldn't be able to hug people, to greet people, to shake hands. So I think there is, not to be too tragic about it, but we have to, I think, acknowledge loss as well as new opportunity. I think we have to acknowledge loss of life, loss of lifestyle. Hopefully we will have a much better world when we come out of this, those of us that will have the will to do so. And that's my hope. And I think in that sense, yes, it is special in terms of COVID. I think in terms of just the collaboration itself, it's as Esther said. But I think there's another element which adds attention, a poignancy, a bit of reflection, and a bit of the bittersweet beauty of life and death to what we do. And that's our normal fare in terms of beauty and portrayal of the human condition in our art. But I think it's brought it, for me at least, even more present, more in front of my face, so to speak.
I think that one of the important moments of this was that, first of all, Esther and Dee, who are musicians, are used to collaborating. They always have collaborators at some point. Dominique and I collaborate together, but we also collaborate with others. I'm a master printer, so I'm in constant collaboration with other people. Dominique collaborates for exhibitions. And so the idea of collaborating with family is something, it's like a question we didn't really even ask. It just seemed to present itself at this exhibition. Because in the beginning, we were thinking about, when I first opened Bleu Acier, I did a show about music, which Dee and his wife Elsa participated in. It was called The Colors of Music. And it was all about the structure and segmentation and the movements of dance. It was really nice. And it was a way to open up the space to the public. And so Dee, Elsa, Dominique, and I, and Esther, and their daughter Josiane, we've done things together. Josiane danced at that as well. I think Esther even danced for that show. And I think that the idea of collaboration, when you really like the work of someone else and you really understand it and you have a common point, then it invites itself to happen. Family or not family, you know, that's a tough question. We didn't wake up one day and say, hey, we're going to collaborate with Esther because she's our daughter. It just happened to be in the beginning with Amanda. She wanted to try to recreate this idea of the colors of music. And Dominique and I kept trying to think about a way to continue that, but not do exactly the same thing, not replicate it. And little by little, the idea of installation showed up on the table. He had the idea that he really wanted to make a big installation with which Esther could warm up to. The idea of music being linear, you know, and then with Dee started to participate in Dominique's thinking because of the way the double bass can be a rhythm and a segment, the way he rhythms and segments his line in sculpture. So I don't think family, it just happened to be that, but I don't think that was the reason in the beginning for it to happen.
We did get one other question. Don't want to, sorry, Dominique, cut you off too much, but I think this one will go probably right to you as well. So Ashley, can you share our next one?
Yes, so we have a question from Lindsay that is, in times of loss and of pain, why is poetry so important to life?
Pendant des moments de perte et de mal, pourquoi la poésie est si importante?
Thank you for the very difficult question. It's a beautiful question. Our life is constantly under the presence of the pain, the difficulty, the health, the difficulty, the social difficulties, the resistance, and if we stay in the reality without window, vers d'autres horizons, other skylines, another horizon, it's impossible to survive. I think effectively, during the wars, before the wars, after the wars, the reconstruction of our civilization, the destruction, you know, when you observe the work of a singer, for example, a singer sings 3-4 hours a day, making mistakes, discovering the mistakes, you know, changing the quality of her or his voice. An artist, a painter on the canvas, recover and recover again different codes because he's not happy. The difficulty is there. The sculptor, the same. You know, it's essential to understand that in that pandemic, the coronavirus, where we are, more and more people discover that they have to reinvent totally the life because the life is based on the difficulties. Since the birth to the end, you know, the life, we have built since many years a society of consumption who is extremely dangerous, you know. We discover that we have to slow down with the robotization of everything, with the progresses themselves, you know. When you see, for example, the history of Italy, the painting of Fra Angelico was a painting dedicated to the Christianity, to the belief. No perspective, nothing else, the total frontality. Piero della Francesca arrived and discovered the geometry. With the geometry, they discover the perspective. And with the perspective, they can put the belief in the Christianity in one side and the creation in the other side. And such a way we were on the trace of Leonardo da Vinci, who cut totally the life in different segments and dedicated his life to the traveling, inventing, technology, progresses, you know. It's important to realize that the difficulty are the essence of the exploration, you know. Imagine the difficulty to discover America for Columbus, you know, on that stupid little boat in wood, you know. Everything was impossible to eat, that type of boats were extremely dangerous, no chance to survive, you know. But some people do that, no? I think so. It's important. In a school, it's the same. In the school, you know, all the students are there. You know, we have to create a miracle because we have to reach the point where the difficulty can be transformed in an invention. And the invention is loaded with the emotion, with something, you know, difficult to explain, you know. But you are on the poetry. The poetry is exactly the level I try to work since many, many years. Voilà. Emiliano can put, for example, the image number 1. That is my beginning in art. After my studies in the school, that is one of the first sculptures I have done in wood. And I feel very well with that, you know. It was a new way to create a human being in pieces, you know, like a puzzle, with big pieces of wood and color. The photo is black and white because I have known the photo, but in reality, that sculpture is in color. You see, the frontality is very important. You imagine the difficulty for me to escape the normal anatomy and the continuity of the segments. The segments are there, you know. The frontality is there. The two-dimensional art is there. You know, when I speak about the two-dimensional art, I speak about the bas-relief, you know, like Assyrian art. To tell a story on a wall, attached to the wall, the story of a war, you know. Long time, the sculpture was the only way to describe the reality of the life on the architecture directly, not freestanding sculpture, you know. It was just like une pièce de monnaie.
Like a coin.
Like a coin, voilà. I try to rejoin the notion of coin and to rejoin a very clear subject. The subject has to be simple, not complicated. But you can enter into complication after that. That is your freedom. Thank you.
Dominique, your answers are like poetry sometimes. I think we could be continuing this conversation for a very long time.
Excuse me, it's difficult for me, you know.
It's okay. Well, hopefully we'll be able to have everyone back in the physical space of the gallery. Eventually, we're keeping the show open through the start of fall, and we can talk more and extend this conversation even further. So we're so glad all of you still with us, hanging out there in cyberspace, that you were able to join us for our virtual reception celebrating Warm Up in Tandem. Thank you, Dominique, Erika, Esther, Dee. It's been my pleasure and privilege working with each and every one of you.
Thank you, guys, and thank everyone for hanging out with us. That was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you to the team, to the audience, to everyone. This is really, really cool.
I third all of that. Thank you for everyone's support and for this wonderful team of people who put this together, and yeah, to everyone, Mom, Dad, Dee, everyone.
There's lots of virtual love here. So we're going to end, if you guys joined us a little later, by replaying a slideshow with installation images from Warm Up in Tandem, so you guys can experience this in a little way at the end tonight. So everyone, please take care and be well. Hopefully see you all soon.
Good night.
Bravo. Big step.